G'day again, this is George on the 13th of April 2026 edition of Message of Hope. So, I graduated with an information technology degree in early 90s. And I want to tell you something embarrassing about that. Why not, hey? You see, I had absolutely no idea what I was holding. Let me explain. I thought IT was about spreadsheets, those days, forecasting, making columns of numbers behave themselves, and lots of computer programming perhaps, because we did quite a bit, right? We even learned COBOL, that was interesting. I understood in the vaguest possible sense that data was involved. But data as leverage? Data as a way of finding out what a person would tolerate before they walked away and then paying them exactly that and not $1 more. That was not in the curriculum, not even close. You see, the realization came gradually actually. Articles about privacy, hearing rumors and people talk about what the big tech companies were doing with information you would hand over. Okay, I've given mine too, right? We all have. It crept in over the years, and even then I didn't fully feel the weight of it. Not until I read something recently that described a practice apparently now available to employers. Listen to this. But I'm going to say I'm not aware of any Australian employers doing this yet. But just to let you know that technology exists and these things do travel, don't they? And here's how it works. So, before you've walked into the interview, before you said a word about what you're expecting, in the background already done, an algorithm has been running on you. Not you specifically, but a profile. It's reviewed your credit history. Sometimes might get personal as that. I'm just saying it's tracked what salary you accepted last time and the time before, which is interesting, right? This is private information. It's noted your debt levels, your financial patterns, your vulnerability signals. That's a lot of information, guys. And by the time you sit down, it already has a number. Let me go on. So that number is not what the market says you're worth, not what your skills say you're worth. It's actually your desperation, yeah, that it's calculating on. You can see, same job, two candidates, different pay perhaps, based on not what they bring to the role, but on what the system calculated they'll accept and stay quiet about. You can see where this is leading, isn't it? AI is doing all the judgment now. Yeah, it's only got facts and figures, doesn't have the heart behind it. Now, before I say a single word about any of that, I'm going to tell you something about myself first. I worked in a pawnbrokering retail shop. And my actual job with a manager's guideline on what my upper limit was, I was to buy used stock from people at the lowest price I could get away with. And most of the time I got a good price. I really did. My skills are pretty good. Because people who walk into a pawnbroker generally aren't in a strong position, isn't it? They need the money, they need it now. And that need is a negotiation position. It's one that sits firmly on my side of the counter, yeah? And I knew it. Everyone in the shop knows it. My manager knew it. The business model was built around that. It has been for the last, I don't know how many hundreds of years. Now, I didn't invent that dynamic. It is legal. It's just standard practice. And I participated in it. And I just want to name that before I say anything else, because, yeah, the honest distance between what I did behind that counter and what a surveillance wage algorithm now does is not as large as I like it to be. You'll see my point soon. So the technology is newer, but the scale is vastly bigger, I would say. The principle is the same. You pay what desperation will accept, not what value deserves. There's a magpie in front of me. Let's even grab a shot of it. Hello, magpie. And this is where I discover on a Bible verse. Luke chapter 10, verse 7. Maybe he's looking for his home. So this is very short first. The labourer deserves his wages. And that's it. No conditions, no asterisk saying except when the algorithm finds a more efficient number. No, none of that. The worker deserves wages proportionate to the work. 4 words we just read. It carries enormous weight. Now, please, and take a little break. If this is connecting with something you've been carrying, do share this video with someone you think who would need to hear it today. And that's the one ask I offer you. Just one person you just share it with. Okay, I can hear the objection forming because I've asked myself the same question. I was never a managing director. I've never sat across a payroll spreadsheet deciding on what to offer someone. And if I were running a business, watching my competitors reduce labour costs with a tool that was legal and available, would I use it? Great question. Let me ask you that first. Would you use it? Now, I don't want to answer that too quickly because I think the honest answer is uncomfortable, right? Yeah. We're all consumers. We all want the lowest price for the same quality. Who doesn't, right? It'd be bonkers if you don't want that. So that distinct doesn't disappear when you move to the other side of the desk. And the tool is legal and the margins are tight and everyone around is reaching for it. Really, the pull is very real. Now, I felt a version of that pull every day behind the pawnbroker counter when I worked there. And here's the thing though, I think there is a line between shrewd and exploitative. Shrewd is knowing the market, negotiating hard and paying what the role generally justifies. But exploitation is using someone else's financial vulnerability to pay them less than what the work is worth. Because you can and because they can't afford to leave. Wow, talk about power, yeah? Unbalanced power. And of course the algorithm doesn't know the difference, but God does. I'll repeat, God Almighty, He does. And let me tell you about 2002. I was working as an IT contractor in Melbourne, in the city. The job was rolling out Windows 2000 laptops across one of the largest accounting firms in the country. You can guess which firm it is. So it involved rotating shifts, days and nights. And the team I was working with was good. We're all contractors. We were genuinely efficient. And we got through the work faster than the client had budgeted for, by the looks of it. And here's how that was rewarded. Are you ready? The client supervisor started sending us home early. On some shifts, night shifts that is, and days, shifts you would rearrange your week around, right? We were cut off to sometimes even 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day, that's not what we asked for. Because we're being too good at the job and getting through the project at a very fast speed. And the client didn't want to pay for the time they hadn't planned on needing. Look, I understand that, but I thought you agreed on the contract. Anyway, it turns out my agency wasn't happy. And good on them, they found me another role that lasted 3 months. It was a better pay and far more interesting work, that's for sure. And here's the detail I keep coming back to. Because just before that, a different agency, different client, it was a contract winding down. I wanted more set aside for the rainy day fund because I needed more money, right? The client wouldn't move on that rate. Well, the agency, to keep me working and keep their commission, topped up my hourly rate out at the cost of their own margin. So yeah, good, a few dollars in my pocket. And those few extra dollars bought me a few extra bags of nappies. It meant a lot to me. Now, I don't say that for sentiment, of course not. I say it because this is exactly what Luke chapter 10 verse 7 looks like when it actually works. When someone with a little more power decides to act on it rather than extract it from it. As I said, the labourer deserved wages. And somebody in that transaction decided that mattered. Thankfully, it was in my favour. Now, here's the practical question underneath this all. When you walk into a salary conversation, are you negotiating from strength or desperation? I hope it's the former for you. Because if there's no buffer between you and the next bill, or it's about no emergency fund, nothing to catch you, then the algorithm, the supervisor, the pawnbroker behind the counter already knows the answer. You see, desperation is visible. It shows up in your credit history. It shows up in every offer you've accepted without pushing back. It even shows up in a way you conduct a salary conversation when you genuinely cannot afford to walk away. Well, hello? That's the thing I spent years not saying clearly enough. But I'm glad. The emergency fund doesn't protect you when you lose work. I mean, it doesn't just do that, right? Think of it, 3 months of living expenses sitting somewhere boring and accessible is not only financial prudence, it is negotiation position. It's the difference between a conversation and a bloodbath. It's the thing that lets you say, hey, I need to think about that, and actually mean it. Now, I've watched this from the other side of the pawnbroker counter for years. The person who could wait got a better price, yeah. Because we don't want them to walk away with stock that we wanted. And the person who couldn't, well, no, sorry, they didn't get the best price. So, I urge you, build a buffer, not because you fear the algorithm, but because God calls you to steward your resources with enough wisdom that you don't have to sell cheap. Don't do that to yourself. So again, the laborer deserves his wages. Friends, do you believe that enough to negotiate like it's true? Because somewhere right now, somewhere, an algorithm is counting on you not to do that. Thanks so much for being with me. It's turned out to be a really nice day after all. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.